Happy Monday, everybody. Happy Monday, and welcome to another edition of Pop Culture Power. I, of course, am your host, Crystal Jordan, also known as Crystal XO. So come on in and have a seat. There's a lot to talk about, as always. I feel like there's always so much to talk about when it comes to pop culture. I do want to say that I did a piece last week before we get into what everyone probably wants to talk about today because as you guys know, I feel like Bad Boy has taken over the airwaves, but not in a positive way. It is pretty much the trending topic that is everywhere. And so we definitely are going to get into it. But before we do that, I do want to bring your attention to the fact that I wrote a piece this past week for Collider. And that's because I talk a lot about, on this channel, we talk a lot about Love and Marriage Huntsville. We talk a lot about a lot of different shows that air on OWN. This is pretty much an OWN-friendly channel, right? Ready to Love is kind of how we started. And so Ready to Love, Love and Marriage Huntsville, now Love and Marriage Detroit. If you missed our conversation on Love and Marriage Detroit, that was on Friday night. We had a really good time. But I talk a lot about Love and Marriage Huntsville. We do a recap of that show. And so I have an article that is on Collider right now that states Love and Marriage Huntsville may not survive another season. And the reason that I think Love and Marriage Huntsville may not survive another season, I talked a little bit about this a couple of weeks ago, is that basically there's a lot of tension, there's a lot of toxicity, but there are very few real relationships holding as the glue that holds everything together. So I think in order to have a successful reality show, you have to have equal parts toxicity and then also like real relationship, or at least allies. Like you got to have enemies and allies. And thank you, Lois. Oh my gosh. Yeah, the braids came out and we're doing our thing today, but that just totally threw me off. You guys know it's a black girl's world out here. I am considering just doing locks because I am over the hair. I'm over pressing it out. I'm over getting braids. I'm over all of it. But back to Love and Marriage Huntsville. If you don't have allies to go along with the enemies, then it's an issue, right? Because there has to be a give and take. And right now with Love and Marriage Huntsville, all we have is take. We have the guys fighting. I mean, usually on reality TV, you have women fighting, but you don't also have the men fighting as well. Usually the guys don't get into it. But in this situation, and it could be due to Marceau. It could. I'm not for sure. I'm not gonna completely put the blame on Marceau, but the fact that we do have a guy that has no problem getting into women's business and actually bringing that back to the other side. So Marceau and Martell are fighting. Marceau and Courtney don't get along. Martell and pretty much everybody at some point is at odds with Martell. And then we also have the women fighting. So check that article out and let me know what you think. I just feel like I understand that Carlos King is making it do what it's supposed to do as far as the fighting and the going back and forth and the definitely the new drama with Sonny and Moses, which is definitely proven to be tune in on Saturday worthy. But all that to be said, there's got to be something there. And we don't have any real relationships. Like Kimmy and Tisha don't get along. Kimmy and Tisha are sister-in-laws I've never forgotten that Kimmy said, if she wasn't my sister-in-law, I would not hang out with her. That kind of makes you feel like she's just there for the show, but there really isn't a real serious connection between the two of them either. So it's just a lot. And I feel like successful reality shows have strong alliances, and then also the enemies and the conflict goes back and forth. But if you don't have any alliances and any relationships, everybody's at odds. Like y'all might as well just all fight and then go home. Hey, Colson. So check that article out. But of course, we are here to talk about what is going on in pop culture. At I mean, I don't think any pop culture conversation could not happen without addressing what is going on with Sean Diddy Combs. I have a few things to share with you guys. Hi, Black Rose. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the XO family. Come on in and have a seat. We are talking about Sean Combs, right? P. Diddy, Love, Diddy, Puff. It's so strange that he has so many nicknames to where people forget that his name is actually Sean and Jay-Z's name is actually Sean. They have the same first name, but we don't use either of their first names at all. Like people forget that Jay-Z's name is Sean. People forget that Puff's Diddy's name is Sean. Sean Combs, Sean Carter. But we're not talking about Sean Carter today. He is in the clear. We are talking about Sean Combs. So I'm going to start off with this clip that I pulled of Sean Combs talking about his infamous parties. And he was talking about them back in 1999. You guys remember the energy of 1999? Some of you may be a little, that might have been a little early for you. But those of us who know what 1999 felt like, first of all, we all thought the world was potentially about to end because Prince had that record, Party Like It's 1999. It came out a few years before that. But there was this energy of like, have a good time. We have no idea what the future holds. Party, don't stop, won't stop, don't stop, won't stop. That was the energy around 1999. So this clip is from Entertainment Tonight, talking with Sean Combs about his infamous parties. And it's so ironic that he would end up defending those same parties almost 24 years later. Take a glance at this clip and then let's talk.
So the hottest ticket around.
They won't even give me a permit for the parties, man. They don't want me to throw the parties no more. But we ain't gonna stop. We're gonna keep on having fun, bringing people together from all walks of life. You're gonna hear about my parties. They're gonna be shutting them down. They're gonna probably be arresting me, doing all types of crazy things just because we want to have a good time. Whenever you bring up a different element into people's environment, things that broaden people's horizon, people get intimidated. There's a lot of people out there that feel intimidated by it. It ain't nothing but break it down, racial barriers, break it down.
All right, so there you heard it out of his mouth himself, the parties. Now, what's interesting in that clip is that he said that it was about breaking down racial barriers. And I just want to make one point clear. A lot of people have been talking about this in terms of hip hop and in terms of Black culture. But I think it's very clear from that clip, and I think it's very clear from some of the things that we're about to get into, that Sean Combs was not, he was bigger than hip hop. He was bigger than hip hop. He was bigger than Black Hollywood. One of the things that he mentioned in that was it was about breaking racial barriers. And we know that his Hollywood Rolodex extended well out of the Black community, right? He was never confined to that. He started with Uptown Records and Andre Harrell, but his personality and his ability to, create this lifestyle that people wanted to be a part of extended far beyond, like I said, Black Hollywood, and certainly far beyond hip hop. Now, years later, hip hop would become very mainstream. But at the time, he was ahead of his time in that regard, in that he was already, his parties always were the ones that, everybody wanted to be at. Be it this reporter that we just heard in that clip from Entertainment Tonight saying that his parties were the ones that everyone wanted to be at. This was a Caucasian lady, reporter for Entertainment Tonight. And you don't get any bigger with entertainment, than Entertainment Tonight. That's certainly not Black Hollywood. That's certainly not hip hop. Entertainment Tonight is mainstream entertainment. So I think it's clear. It's very important that we include this conversation when we're talking about him. It's not about race at this point. It really is about someone that was, his influence was far bigger than that. Now, I am going to call him Sean Combs because I was listening to, I read an article that Roy Wood Jr. They quoted Roy Wood Jr., the comedian. And it was like, at this point, people keep calling him by his nicknames. People are calling him Puff. People are calling him Diddy. People are calling him P. Diddy. He asked to be called Love not too long ago. But the reality is the court case. And even though I did show you guys the court documents, and the court documents do have all those names listed in there, right? All those names that he goes by are in the court document as a, as a reference. But at first, of course, it starts with Sean Combs. And I just think that because we're taught that the persona that he put on is the alias, right? But at this point, the person that is in jail awaiting a trial, the person that it was, is reaping the benefits of a lot of the deeds that he did. The Diddy and all that extra hype does not reap the benefits. What happens is it's the father, right? It's the person as themselves, not your alias can't take on all of that. And so I think sometimes, I think that even though Roy Wood Jr. was being funny, I think that he was right in the fact that we have to remind ourselves that at the end of all of this, is an actual person, and that person is being charged with this, and that person has to deal with the consequences and repercussions of the actions they did under an alias, right? And so for that reason, I think it's important to refer to him as Sean Combs. I also think that he made another good point that I really liked a lot, and I would love to hear you guys' feedback, people that are listening tonight, your feedback. So we're talking about these alleged parties, the issues with the parties. And before I get into that, I want to read exactly what the issue is, because a lot of people are saying, well, he should not be in trouble for throwing parties, as we heard him defending himself back in 1999, saying that people did not want to give him permits for his parties because it was a good time and we want to party. And if you were around and any part of his were touched by the influence he had on music and entertainment, then a part of his brand was partying hard and having a good time. Work hard, play hard, right? All these things are what were represented in the lifestyle that he showcased, right? And so no, it's not a crime to have a party, right? And have a lot of friends over. It's not a crime to have a big party that goes for days and days and days. It's not even a crime to have a party where people are engaging in intimacy. It is not a crime to do that. Now, because I just want to make sure that those of you that check in here, my XO family understands exactly what the issues are and why he's in trouble. It's not because he was throwing parties, and it's not because his parties were including a lot of alcohol and a lot of intimacy. It is because in this indictment, Diddy is described as the leader and mastermind of a criminal enterprise. And that enterprise goes back to 2008, as far as what they have on paper, right? So prosecutors are saying that he used this business, Bad Boy Enterprises, Bad Boy Entertainment, Ciroc, Revolt, and other companies that he owned to create an illegal scheme. Many of those companies he no longer owns. If you guys know anything about his trajectory, he's no longer with Ciroc. He was actually with Diageo, and then he sued them. And after suing them, he eventually withdrew the lawsuit. But coincidentally, all these charges came up. But even the companies he no longer owns, it includes former employees that range from security to household staff to personal assistants and supervisors. They're all considered members of the Combs enterprise that helped or facilitated various crimes. Now, the problem is that they were actually, it's allegedly, Diddy and members of the Combs enterprise are accused of engaging in sex trafficking, forced labor, interstate transportation for purposes of prostitution, coercion, and enticement to engage in prostitution, narcotics offenses, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. The aforementioned criminal activities were done for various purposes, including but not limited to preserving Diddy's power and reputation, fulfilling his sexual desires, making him and those willing to conceal his crimes richer, and protecting the enterprise from law enforcement. So some of that is like hearsay and can be a little bit not necessarily black and white. We can't necessarily say what it was for, but what we can say is that prostitution is legal. I don't think that many people realize that, but when prostitution, paying a person male or female, a sex worker, paying for their services, specifically flying them in across state lines, is illegal. I don't think most people, and you guys can let me know in the chat. In the chat, please put a 1 if you knew that it was illegal to offer someone finances for in exchange for intimate activity. Put a 1 in the chat if you knew that was illegal and punishable by law. I don't think many people think of it that way. I think that we live in a culture where even if people are not necessarily where intimacy, physical intimacy, is often seen as transactional, right? And be it a person buying a bag for someone or giving them money, buying them clothes, spending money on, taking them on a shopping trip. I don't think many people think of this as still illegal activity, right? It's illegal to assign a dollar amount to physical intimacy. I don't, because I honestly think, and if people understood that, I think a lot more people would be in trouble, specifically people that have exorbitant income, right? Because he's not the only person that has excessive income that has engaged in these activities. Now, before we go any further, I want to make sure to say I am not excusing any behavior. I think that behavior is disgusting, and most importantly, I was horrified watching the video of the physical violence exacted upon Cassie Ventura. Horrific. Had I heard that had happened, absolutely. Seeing it and hearing it are two very different things, right? So I had heard rumors for years, being in the entertainment industry, but I had never seen that, right? I had been around and seen the two of them on several occasions, but I had never seen anything like that. So I'm not excusing the behavior at all. I'm just saying, I just want to have a conversation here on Pop Culture Power and ask people, do people really know that? Because a lot of people are assuming that he's being, attacked, and he's being, basically targeted for things that are not wrong. But when you break it down, and you are offering another person, be it male or female, a physical, an actual amount of money to perform a physical activity, it is considered prostitution, which is illegal. And sex trafficking is when you have invited or flown or driven a person across state lines to perform the act of prostitution. So, with that being said, it definitely makes those allegations a lot more. It just clears it up a little bit, because people are like, "Oh, he's just having a good time." Well, you can have a good time, but if you're paying people to come in and perform certain acts, that's illegal, right? And everything can be cool until the cops get called, and then when the cops get called and they start breaking things down, it's like, wait a minute, this is actually against the law. So that's the first problem. Another thing that Roy Wood Jr. mentioned that I think is important is he said that, the term freak offs, right? And people are all social media is having a field day with this. And when you call something a freak off, it sounds like something freaky. It doesn't necessarily sound like something criminal, right? It doesn't necessarily have the same connotation to it, because our culture embraces and encourages freakiness, right? You guys know, I'm a Chris Brown fan, and Chris Brown he has an actual record. I'm a freak, like freakiness. Rick James started, like, freakiness is not considered criminal. It's not considered bad. In some cases, it's actually considered positive. Depending on which crowd you're in, you go someplace and you tell someone you're a freak, in this culture, you probably will have a lot more friends than the people that are not freaks, right? Um, so that is that's a problem. And when you think about words, you guys know I'm a writer. I think words are um, and extremely important. How we use words, understanding their connotative meaning and their denotative meaning, like the dictionary meaning versus what it means in the culture. And people are not necessarily always aware of things being twisted and made to seem worse based on who is having the conversation. But a freak off is not necessarily, that was the term that he assigned to the activity. But when people are saying it and it's like, oh well, he's in trouble for hosting freak offs, I don't think people really are understanding the gravity of that. That actually it is criminal activity that in some cases allegedly involved people being um, drugged to do activity beyond their consent. That is, in all for all practical purposes, alleged rape, right? And so I do think, to Roy Wood Jr.'s point, when you trivialize it or make it, easier to digest, easier to swallow, when you say it's a freak off, it doesn't sound um, like something that is criminal or something that could put someone in danger. It sounds like a fun, nasty party, and our culture likes and encourages fun, nasty parties, right? So I think that's really important to say. Now, I also, making sure, I just wanted to make sure today that I touched on a couple of things. Like I said, the number one thing being, this is not necessarily a racial thing. I don't believe, because his influence, um his fan base was far extended, it extended far beyond his race, right? And he was someone that had reached a level of um, access that was way beyond what most Black men would be able to, you know, um, have access to. His situation was very, very different. So I think that there are some critics out there saying, well, he's being treated like this because he's a Black man. That's going to be difficult to prove, because actually a lot of the people that visited him, a lot of people that were part of these parties were not Black, and a lot of the people that were probably had his back and were a part of his inner circle were not Black. Yes, he was a big face for the culture, but he was also a very astute businessman, and a lot of his business dealings, I mean, his inner circle when it comes to business were not African American, as is usually the case. People get to a certain level, they kind of, they for some reason they want to hire and maintain, attain, retain, and employ people that are not African American, and I don't know if they feel like that makes them, that shows that they've arrived, or that gives them a different level of access. It could be a lot of different reasons for that, but I just want to make sure that we acknowledge that this is not a typical case of a Black man being treated unfairly. A lot of people are comparing this case to Jeffrey Epstein, right? Because there's a list of people that were involved, and you're not able to do things at this level unless you have other people involved in the process besides just people that have brown skin. His parties, his access, his fame, his ability to do things at a certain level definitely included group of people that were far and above just hip hop or R&B, or the Black folks in Hollywood. That was not the case. There was a story I was reading earlier today that involved Kelly Osbourne and her mother, right? And so Kelly Osbourne was at an event and she ran into Diddy. This is a story that was shared with a news outlet, and I believe TMZ reported this, and so he ran into Kelly Osbourne at a party, and of course, he recognized her. Her father is a rock and roll giant, and so he saw her. He apologized for running into her, and he told her that she should she should have more diamonds on. She wasn't blinged out enough, because we know that he basically promoted and was a representative for a life of excess. And so he told her that she needed to wear more diamonds. So she goes home and she tells her mom that she ran into him. And the mother says, "Oh my gosh, what if you married him? You should marry him, because he's a Negro with a lot of money, right? A Negro with a lot of money. We've accepted him in, and this would be great." So he actually sent her Kelly Osbourne. He sent her diamonds, and he sent her a blinged out watch, and she showed her mom, and her mom made a statement that he probably had a great um, eggplant, and that she hoped that her daughter would be with him, would marry him, that she thought that would be a great fit for him. Well, little did her mother know that her daughter's aesthetic was probably not one that he um, preferred for public, but the fact that he did send her diamonds, like, yeah, he's selling the Osborne daughter diamonds. This is not necessarily a racial thing, right? This is not about that. This is some people have been able to. Now, I'm not saying you can ever get out of being recognized and seen as a black man, but let's don't act like his issues are due to his race. I think a lot of his issues are due to, as Denzel Washington said in Malcolm X, a case of the chickens coming home to roost. Now, again, all this is allegedly, and everyone deserves a fair trial. But these are just some of the things that have been reported, as we go along, some of the issues that have come out. Now, I thought it was interesting last night that Egypt Sherrod, and we've interviewed Egypt several times on this platform. I have a lot of respect for Egypt, and a lot of respect for the way she carries herself. Her and her husband, they're a beautiful couple, but she's been a consistent, talented sister, very consistent in radio, and now she's in real estate. They have a show on HGTV titled "Married." I think "Married to Mortgage" or something like that. But it's a very successful show. I know it's in multiple seasons, and she's an executive producer, right? And we know for Egypt found her fame on first New York radio, and she was a force to be reckoned with there. Moved to Atlanta, did radio here in Atlanta for a few years before moving on to her second act, which has been real estate, which actually she was involved with before. And I'll probably tag a couple of, I've interviewed her, I know twice at least here, maybe more. So I'll tag a couple of those interviews for people that may not know who she is and want to go back and see. But Egypt posted a story to her Instagram, a caption to her Instagram, actually to her Twitter, and then shared it on Instagram. And then as soon as people started paying attention to it, she took it down. But I was able to take a screenshot of it. And so it says, "After months of flowers, I went on one date with him. He took off his glasses and the whites of his eyes were black. I was face to face with evil. Excused myself to go to the bathroom, ran out the back door, hopped in a cab, and stopped taking his calls. Thank you, God, for my gift of sight. I can see a person's spirit when others can't. I went to church and threw myself on the altar. To this day, I believe that's why I was protected." And she says in her caption, she says, "It was close, but I was covered. Everyone has a story about this monster. Mine gets deeper, but I will leave it here. Everyone knows who I'm talking about." Now, she took that down right after she posted it, but I was able to screenshot it, and a few other outlets were able to screenshot it. And it's just interesting because I think that there's not really anybody, for those of you that pay attention to pop culture and watch, television shows and social media at this point, that Hollywood is very small, right? It's very, 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 very small. And so there are few people that reach a certain level of fame that don't interact with others, right? And so it's not surprising that, and of course, with Egypt being a media personality, um, and a very, very successful one. I know that she had done radio in New York from before she was actually like able, old enough to drink. So she's very well known, very visible, beautiful young woman. It's not surprising that he would target her, right? But what is surprising is that she had the foresight and the discernment to see and get out of that situation. But it's sad how many of these stories continue to come out. There honestly, there have been stories for years from different people, and they just weren't paid. People didn't pay attention to them because I feel like our culture only holds people accountable when it's no longer cool, when they're no longer cool. I feel like if you're successful and you're still on a run, I feel like people aren't going to really hold you accountable. And I feel like a lot of this outrage is fake outrage. And I can prove it. I can prove it. Um, Actually, I looked at a few stats today, and I just want to share that with you guys. It says since Sean Combs' recent arrest and the public release of an indictment against him, his musical catalog has experienced a significant increase in streaming. So the fake outrage is, as for most people, the outrage is extremely fake. According to ABC News, Diddy's music experienced an average increase of 18.3% in demanded streams during the week of his arrest. Luminate, a company specializing in industry data and analytics, also reported the increase. This rise was measured against the previous week's streaming numbers. It is not unusual for streaming numbers to rise after a controversy. For example, when the documentary accused R. Kelly of sexual misconduct with women and underage girls, his streaming numbers nearly doubled. Similarly, Sean Combs is facing serious federal charges of sex trafficking and racketeering. The indictment outlines allegations that date back to 2008, claiming he has abused, threatened, and coerced women over the years to satisfy his sexual desires. So strange that they are saying that that all this stuff was to satisfy his sexual desires, and they're also not mentioning the fact that there were a lot of men, named in these situations as well. It wasn't all women, and it definitely wasn't all. This is just my speculation on something like that. It's not necessarily always about sexual desire. Sometimes people are motivated by power. And anytime someone is brutalizing someone or using their power and influence to make people do certain things, their motivation may not be um, for sexual desires. Their motivation could be for power and for a show of power. It's not necessarily always about sexual desires. I had pulled. Oh, here it is. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can play this. I had pulled another video, but I don't know. I don't think it will. It will upload now. But it's just interesting that how people see things and how we interpret them. Marriott says it doesn't mean it's fake outrage. Well, I would say I think that for some people it is fake outrage. I think that I know that I've spoken with a lot of men in this business over the last months, because this has been coming for quite a while. After Cassie's lawsuit was filed and he settled that immediately, there has been a lot of conversation about what this would look like, when and if it did happen. And I know from just the conversations that I've had, there are a lot of men specifically that and women as well. I'll be honest, a lot of women. It's not just men. There are a lot of women also that don't believe don't necessarily believe the victims, don't believe that people were victims if they remained in a situation for an extended period of time. There's a lot that goes into that, and it's not just men. So I want to make sure that I don't just say that men are the only ones that are having a problem with believing that he's guilty or saying that. But I do think that, hold on, I'm trying to get this video for you guys. I do think that we are far quicker to throw the book at someone that is not at the top than we are someone else. You know, people are a lot of times the level of their talent dictates how accountable we hold them for their actions. And I would love for people to let me know what you guys think of that in the chat. Like, I have seen that. I've seen it numerous times. And from my perspective, I've seen that if they are someone of note. I mean, look how long it took for R. Kelly to be held accountable. And I would say a big part of that was because of his extreme talent, right? If he had not been as talented as he was, I think that he would have had to show up and take responsibility a lot sooner. So I want to show you guys this video. Covers for that. I'm going to play that again because I just want you guys to catch these headlines that are ironically and coincidentally placed on those articles. Close to when he had the another daughter with another young lady. So interesting. Those titles are all very interesting. I also think it's very interesting that Dream Hampton wrote that last cover for Essence magazine. For those of you who don't know, Dream Hampton was involved, was executive producer, one of the producers for the R. Kelly documentary, Saving R. Kelly. Very small world, very weird coincidence. I don't even begin to know, um, how that connects, but it's definitely a strange coincidence that Dream Hampton would have written that piece. And then it's also a very strange coincidence that those bylines were on those articles. Very, very, very strange. I don't know if that was prophetic or someone did that on purpose, but it's very, very odd. And just very strange. Let me see, take some. If you guys have questions, I'm happy to answer them. Monica says, I think during the time Diddy was growing up, being gay or bi was not acceptable. Personally, I think those type of men abuse women because they hate themselves. I've seen it happen. That could definitely be the case. Like I said, this is all alleged, but the only issue that I have with that, I do agree with the first part of that potentially, but his violence behavior has not been restricted to women only. That mention of arson in the indictment was from him blowing up Kid Cudi's car. And Kid Cudi, of course, is coincidentally came out as bisexual, but he was seeing Cassie. I don't know if they were actually like in a romantic relationship, but he was seeing Cassie, and that resulted in a threat being made and his car being blown up. And I've also heard that his dog was killed. But again, this is all hearsay and allegedly. But all of this has been going on for quite some time. There are people that have known about this for quite some time. I heard about the car with Kid Cudi years ago. Marriott has a question. If everyone knew, why did those men keep going to the parties? I think that question kind of answers itself. I'm of the belief at this point, Marriott, that there are a lot of people that are uncomfortable with their sexuality, even at this point that we are in as a culture, where to myself, and I'm sure many other people, it seems that there's a lot of acceptance, and there's not the same level of bias towards people that have, that share different sexual orientations. However, because of the way that things are happening and what we're seeing come out, and the sheer number of names and alliances and allegations that are swirling in this case, it would seem to suggest that there are a lot more people that are fluid, than are willing to come out and acknowledge that they are. So I just wanted to, we had to talk about that because that's a big part of what's happening in pop culture right now. But I want to take a pivot to a much more lively conversation and ask everybody if they are watching the Golden Bachelorette. You guys know I am always into reality shows that are about love and potential of love and finding love. And so I watched the Golden Bachelor. I did a lot of conversation on Pop Culture Passion about the Golden Bachelor. The Golden Bachelorette has just started, and I wanted to talk to you guys about what I learned watching the first episode of the Golden Bachelorette. Now, what's up, D Glove? It's definitely Libra season. We're gonna cut up. In fact, we should have a Pop Culture Power specifically for Libras next week, because this is our time. This is our time. Shout out to all the other Libras in the building. Actually, I do know that the second week of October, the first week of October, I'm going to be gone because my honey bunny and I are going on a trip for our birthdays and anniversaries. If you watch this channel, you know that my birthday is October 3rd and my husband's birthday is October 5th, and we got married on October 4th. So we have a holiday of 3, 4, 5. So we will be in the Bahamas for that holiday. So I will see you guys the next week, and I will not be going live during that. Usually when I go on vacation or I go, even if I'm working or I'm out someplace, I always go live, but I will not go live. I will be, enjoying. I will be enjoying, but I will be back, and I'm going to do a Wednesday dating diaries with Scorpio Mo on zodiac signs and which signs are compatible and which ones are not. So make sure that you are just tuned in. You'll get the alert. If you're a subscriber, you'll get an alert about that. So that's coming up, and I'm excited about that. But getting back to the Golden Bachelorette. So Joan, who is 61, a 61-year-old blonde, beautiful woman, is the Golden Bachelorette. Now, this first episode aired on September 18th. You guys, what's up, Scorpio Mo? If you watch ABC and you're a part of the Bachelor Nation, then you will know it is back, and it is the focus of the current Bachelor Nation season. Now, Scorpio Mo asked, what makes it golden? Good question. Well, what makes it golden is that when a person is of a particular age, then we call these the sunset years or the golden years, right? After you've had children, you've had, a lot of, you've done most of probably the bulk of your career is behind you, right? You're in your 60s or 70s. Not the fake tan, Mariette. No, it's not the fake tan, but that is funny. But the Golden Bachelorette and the Golden Bachelor, because they are in their sunset years. So the Golden Bachelor, I want to say I speak up for ageism, because the Golden Bachelor was 71, right? The Golden Bachelorette is 61. So we still are not necessarily comfortable with allowing women the same space when it comes to ageism that we are men. We can say a 70-plus-year-old man is sexy, but I don't know that audiences would have been ready to embrace a 70-plus-year-old woman as sexy. And I think that we still have work to do. But what I did learn from watching this episode, and I was shocked to learn this. So ladies, tune in specifically. The guys, you guys probably already know this. There is no age that a man is not willing to go all out or to show his, to bring out his best, and to act a fool in the presence of a beautiful woman. There is no age that a man is done with the shenanigans, right? These sunset men, they showed up full of the same games and shenanigans as men in their 40s and 30s and, dare I say, 20s. The same foolishness was present in the 70s. In the 70s, one guy pulls up and he has made he learned that she liked chicken noodle soup, and he's made his name was Choco, and he made her some choco noodle soup. And then another one pulled up, he get out, and if you watch the Bachelor, the Bachelorette, you know that the person stands there and the cars pull up and each contender gets out. Each single gets out so they can meet him. So Joan is standing there, in all her, blonde fabulousness. And this man gets out the car with a cane and then proceeds to get on the ground and do push-ups. Now, his push-ups were not fast. They were not agile. It is the same. Marriott, the dating market is exactly the same in retirement. He started doing push-ups. Another one got out and sang. Another one said a poem, and the poem was horrible. The poem was like a Dr. Seuss poem. It was rhyming too quick, and you said, and you have a tan, and I want a woman named Ann. Like, it was extremely elementary. And he said he wrote this poem for her and he wanted to send it to her. When I tell you, it was the most ridiculous display of testosterone and actually not even testosterone, because as we know, a lot of times testosterone levels drop at a certain age, but I don't know if they took some shots or what, but they were in competition, and it's just the nature of a man. And so I just wanted to come here and say to the ladies, the foolishness never stops. Seriously, singing, rapping, poems, push-ups. One has a French accent. He's from Paris, and he wanted her to hear his Parisian accent. And it was just, I was like, are they serious? In their 70s, it doesn't stop. This is just who they are. And when you put a bunch of them in a room, they're all going to start to try to show out and prove they are the biggest. Now, in men's defense, women, even the sunset women, were catty. So when you put a room full, and for the Bachelorette, the Golden Bachelorette, she has 24 sunset men. If that does not sound like a horror movie, right? I'm saying that now, but I'm well on my way. I know, but I'm just saying, being in a room with 24 grandfathers, great grandfathers, whoo, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it, but I'm not there yet. And I thank God I have an amazing husband. And as he and I slide into that area of life together, I'll be okay. Yes, we have to be less critical of the Ready to Love cast. I think we just have to be less critical of men and just understand that that's just who they are. They are competitive by nature. I have never seen, they might as well have been flexing, and then they were feeling like jealous. This one guy was like, well, he's doing push-ups. He's in great shape. And I was like, his push-ups are slower than most people walking. Bless his heart. But he got down there and he got up eventually. He did. He got up eventually. But I just wanted to share that it does not get better It is the same, and they are competing. One of them came in his Navy SEAL uniform. I'll tell you something. He did not take that suit off. Okay, he wanted her to know that he was a Navy man, and he had the hat, and then he saluted, and she saluted. I was just like, "Sir, you've been retired for over 30 years. What is going on? What is going?" Now maybe he's still a Navy. I mean, he's still that, but he has not been active duty for over 30 years. So I'm just saying, yeah, bless Joan's heart. I don't know about, maybe they should bring in some younger bachelors for her. Um, I don't know. We'll see. But I'm watching. I'm watching. It is called The Golden Bachelorette. It is on ABC. I will be talking about it here on Pop Culture Power. I am working on a working on a story for Collider. You guys can always go to Collider and catch my work because I have a chance to write about reality TV. Yes, but I was just blown away that these older gentlemen were moving with the same energy that their younger counterparts were. There's no difference. This, except for the fact that they're missing some hair, um, and they're not the shoulders and chest are not the same. They're moving a little slower, but their insides are still, they're still ready to compete for that woman, and most importantly, they are still ready to embellish, lie, fabricate for the heart of a beautiful woman. They are still willing and ready to do that. So part of that makes me feel encouraged. Like, age is nothing but a number. People don't really change. Your outside changes, but your inside doesn't. Another part of me is a little scared because I really thought that certain games were going to play themselves out. But no, God help us is a minimum, at the minimum. If you all remember, the Golden Bachelor, Jerry Turner, which I talked about a lot in Pop Culture Power last season, he was 70 plus, and he was playing games and telling mistruths. He said that he was the owner of a restaurant, that he retired for a restaurant, and the reality is that is not the case. He owned a drive-through in the 80s, and he had been a maintenance man since then. So again, I go back to my point that men are willing to lie, embellish, and fabricate well into their 70s for the love of a beautiful woman. There you have it. It never stops. It never stops. It just continues, and the beat goes on. And the beat goes on. So that is what I'm going to leave you all with. Actually, I have one more thing to share with you guys. I had the pleasure today of interviewing Michael Vick. Now, I moved to Atlanta in the early 2000s, and this city belonged to Michael Vick. What I did not mention to him today during our interview is that I went to a party that he and T.I. Put on back in like 2006. It was not a freak off party. However, I left early. So there's that. There's that. But what I did learn at that party is that beautiful women were willing to act very differently than I assumed they would for the opportunity to be able to have an audience with Michael Vick and or T.I. and or their friends, their entourage, right? I will never forget this party. I'll probably talk about it on another day, on another show. But that's because that's not what I want to talk to you guys about today. So I interviewed Michael Vick on his new docuseries titled The Evolution of the Black Quarterback. Great interview. I will definitely post that here on this page for you all to see. Actually, I'll probably post a couple of clips from it. I did it for Collider. And first of all, the series is amazing. I had an opportunity to watch the series in advance in preparation for the interview. And it is very informative. It definitely is a gift to any football fans out there. You definitely should watch this show. It's going to come on, I believe, Amazon. But it's interesting because in the evolution of the Black quarterback, we realized that in like prior to the 1950s, of course, African Americans were not able to be quarterback because the quarterback is supposedly the leader or the brain of the team, and white people did not want to believe that that could be something that a Black person could do. So to avoid it, and they didn't really want Black people playing football at that point. They liked the fact that we were very athletic. They said we were bred, Black people were bred to play football, which is very insulting. But um, they did not want Black men to be in leadership positions. And so they actually banned Black people from the NBA, NFL for a while. That obviously didn't work because probably wasn't much to watch. And so they started back up again. And then I actually have it's a very good documentary, docuseries. I watched the first 3 episodes, and I would definitely, I probably wish I could just gift my husband with it so he can sit in front of it all day because he's a huge football fan. But I want to say that Doug Williams was the first quarterback to win the Super Bowl, but the documentary talks about everything that he had to go through to get to that point. Death threats, people sending him poisoned watermelon, saying that, I mean, just disgusting. And so we went from there being none to being 1 or 2 to 1 or 2 getting to the Super Bowl to now 14, actually 15 for 2004 and 2003, 14. But in 2004, 15 Black quarterbacks started in the first week of the NFL. So we continue to move forward. However, I asked Michael Vick because we have 15 Black quarterbacks, right? However, over 50% of the NFL is African American. So I don't know if those numbers are good or not. I mean, I don't really know when you think about, the numbers and the ratio and how we're showing up. We have, I believe it's 7 minority owners of the 7 Black minority owners in the NFL. You think about the fact that, again, over 50% of teams consist of African Americans. It still seems extremely disproportionate to me, but that's just me. I've never played football, never picked up pigskin, just like to watch it, and at times did cheer for it. But it's a good documentary. It actually also highlights the importance of HBCUs, because I didn't realize that without HBCUs basically putting Black players in place, that they would never have been able to get to the NFL, because colleges, white PWIs, which I went to, PWIs were not welcoming Black quarterbacks. In fact, if you played quarterback, they would ask you to change your position. And if you wouldn't, you would sit, or you would get out. You would be let go. So the fact that HBCUs were so instrumental in getting Black quarterbacks to the NFL is really interesting. But I would just suggest that everyone watch that show, The Black Evolution of the Quarterback. It actually will premiere this week. And if you have a husband or a boyfriend or a brother that loves football, I would suggest letting them know. I have some girlfriends that love football just as much as my husband. And so I will definitely be suggesting that to them. But it's a great piece of history. It talks about the correlation between hip hop culture and the NFL. And it's interesting because we see that those 2 worlds continue to intersect with what is going on right now, with Jay-Z being a big part of the entertainment for the NFL. I actually asked Michael Vick, what did he think about Kendrick Lamar performing at the Super Bowl? I'm not going to tell you his answer because you have to wait for the interview for that to come out. So you have to wait to hear that. But I can't wait to share that with you guys. And of course, tomorrow, make sure that you are tuned in for another episode of Let's Get Crystal Clear, where I am actually sitting down and interviewing people on various topics. Definitely check that out. Set your reminders. Make sure that you are subscribed so you get that reminder. Tomorrow's conversation is going to be good. I promise you, you do not want to miss it. There are a couple of them that have aired already that you should go back and listen to if you haven't. I had the opportunity to talk to 2 men about dating women and the differences that happen in the dating industry, in the dating landscape, in the dating world. So if you want to hear from a man's perspective, make sure that you go back and watch last week's episode of Let's Get Crystal Clear. And then the first episode, we talked about just the whole idea of hot girl summer, and how are we oversexed in our community? Are we objectifying ourselves? So it was an amazing conversation. I'm very thankful that I had two PhD sex therapists come in and sit down with me, and we had a very candid conversation. Great conversation. But as far as pop culture power, I will be back on Monday at 8 o'clock. Tuesday is Let's Get Crystal Clear. Wednesday, my buddy Scorpio Mo and I will be in, and we actually have an amazing guest joining us on Wednesday, as we're going to talk about what makes a man husband material. You do not want to miss that. And last but not least, tune in on Friday for our conversation on Love and Marriage Detroit. Trust me, there was a juicy episode on Saturday. You're not going to want to miss that recap. And we probably will talk a little bit about Love and Marriage Huntsville, because it is going to be on the way back. And, they just did a mid-season break, and then they'll be back. So we'll probably chat a little bit about that. And then I may have more juice to tell you guys about the Golden Bachelorette, because I'm telling you, with these golden single men, ready to risk it all. They are ready to risk it all for the sake of a beautiful woman. There is nothing that motivates the male ego and testosterone and just the essence of maleness more than beauty. Men are motivated, I think, more so than money. They like beauty more than money. They are interesting. You people are interesting, but that's what makes the world go round. Men and women are so different, and I love talking about it all. So make sure that you are here, subscribed. Hopefully, if you're listening to this, that you're subscribed. If you're watching on Facebook, thank you so much for joining, and make sure you subscribe on YouTube so that you can make sure you don't miss any of the content. Right now, we have content coming out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. So it's just must-see TV all the time. You don't have to be anyplace else. And if you miss it, of course, with the live, you can go back and watch on the recording that's on the archives up. You can go through all of them. But I appreciate all you guys for tuning in. I will see you tomorrow at 8:30 for Let's Get Crystal Clear. Have a blessed and productive week. I love you for watching.